Welcome to Life L'Chaim. The national election is only a few weeks away, so we present an interview with Florida Republican House candidate Adam Hasner, who will discuss his views on Israel, Iran, and changes he would make if he were elected. We'll be right back after these messages.
Joining us in studio today is Adam Hasner. Mr. Hasner is running for the U.S. Congressional District, Florida's U.S. Congressional District 22.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us, Adam. Appreciate it. Adam, how has your Jewish upbringing affected your politics?
Well, actually, both my parents were liberal Democrats. I was born in Brooklyn before I moved to Florida, and ironically, my mother...
Wait a minute. Both your parents were Jewish Democrats?
They were. And ironically, my mom was Lois Frankel's campaign manager during her first campaign. So I've known Lois Frankel for a long time, my opponent in this race. We disagree on a lot of policy, and I'm sure you can imagine how tough it was for me to get the car keys from my mom on Friday night when I wasn't willing to go out and help her boss put up yard signs on Saturday. But certainly the passion and the energy I've received from my mom, even though maybe I don't necessarily share her politics.
So do your parents think, what did I do wrong? What happened?
Well, I think they're very proud of me, like parents are.
Right.
If you thought it was tough to tell my mom that I was registering as a Republican at the age of 18, imagine what I had to tell her after I graduated from law school and told her I wasn't going to be a lawyer. And so, no, I think they're just very proud of my involvement, and I really think that's something beyond my 15 years of private sector experience in the healthcare industry, working with hospitals and physicians and really understanding the dollars and cents of healthcare. They're proud of my public service and my 8 years serving in the State House of Representatives and the accomplishments that I was able to get done during my time in Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm. So then who shaped your politics?
Well, I think I'm a very voracious reader and certainly love history. People like Winston Churchill, people who were willing to stand up against the grain and stand up to the pressure, who were principled and who understood that even if what they weren't saying at the time was popular, they believed it so much to be so, that they were able to help change the course of world events. People like Natan Sharansky, somebody who was a political prisoner but who understood the importance of freedom, who understood that when that communism would fall when Ronald Reagan became president, because he recognized that Reagan was able to have the moral clarity to declare communism the evil empire. And so it's people who have that strength, that inner strength, and who are able to do tough things and go against the grain. And it's not just people necessarily who I agree with all the time, but it's people who have that intestinal fortitude and that ability to persevere through difficult moments.
We're in the heart of this campaign, and I know the days are one after the other and all very long for you. During this campaign, what is the number one question that people ask of you?
Well, I think people ask, what are your plans? What are your solutions? What are your ideas? I know one thing, people are sick and tired of the name calling, of the scare tactics, of the blaming. Both parties, Republicans and Democrats, got us into the mess that we're in. And so this election isn't about Republicans or Democrats. This election is about math. Because we can't keep spending what we're spending, we can't keep running up the deficits and the debt that we're running up. It's unsustainable, and it's really going to alter the future in terms of economic growth and America's standing around the world if we don't get it under control. And so people want to know, what are your solutions to get our fiscal house in order, and what are your solutions to getting America's economy moving again? And that's why I've talked about supporting a balanced budget amendment. That's why I've talked about reining in out of control spending. It's why I've talked about tax reform and regulatory relief and an energy policy for Made in America energy to get our economy moving again. And so people want specifics. I think they're sick and tired of the just the back and forth and the name calling, watching nothing get done.
Mm-hmm. People have heard about the debt for many years, and our lifestyles haven't changed because of that debt. So why now? Why is
well,
now is that such an
now
issue?
more than ever? And remember, Republicans helped create the problem. Democrats have added to it. But now with the debt over $16 trillion and becoming equal to the size of our economy, it is really creating a lot of uncertainty in the business climate. It is a lot of people fearful of tax increases, a lot of people fearful of inflation, a lot of people fearful of higher interest rates. That's having an impact on job growth. But here's the other thing. Having a $16 trillion debt when you're borrowing nearly 40 cents of every dollar, much of it from countries that don't share your values and your interests, it becomes a great threat to your national security. And when America, just like in business though, if you have creditors, you don't control your own destiny. That's what's happening in America right now. And so the more we borrow, the more we rack up in debt. It's not only dangerous for the type of America that future generations are going to inherit, one that I believe will potentially have less opportunity and less prosperity, but it's dangerous today because it's putting America in a situation where we can't act in our best interest and we can't act in the best interest of our allies.
But many people say that debt doesn't matter because we're just printing money.
Well, printing money is actually the biggest fear I think that a lot of people have, the devaluation of the currency. It will be absolutely devastating to seniors and to savers, people who have saved up for so long to live the lifestyle that they deserve. Inflation and devaluing the dollar will absolutely be devastating to them in terms of their dollar being able to purchase less. So that's actually a big fear that's out there, and some of the things that we've seen with what the government's doing of pumping more money into the system actually creates that. And so that's definitely something we need to move away from. We need to have stronger and more sound fiscal policy as well as monetary policy.
I know your website shows some information and breaks it down to an individual in terms of that $16 trillion plus dollars worth of debt, and how much it impacts just an individual family.
It does, and I think these numbers are so big now that you can't even comprehend them anymore. And so I like to talk about the fact of breaking it down to what it would be like for a family. Imagine a family that has about $51,000 in income, but spending nearly $75,000 a year, and they've been doing it for so long that they've racked up over $325,000 in credit card bills. That's roughly where America is as in terms of its fiscal house, and that's why this is unsustainable. That's why we have to get this headed in a different direction, and so that's why every conversation that Washington has to be focused on what do we do to get our fiscal house in order, and what do we do to get our economy moving again.
Well, we got a lot to get through today. We're going to take a break right now. So when we come back, we're going to talk more policy and get some thoughts on the current administration and how things might be different with an Adam Hasner in the House of Representatives.
You bet.
Okay. We'll be right back. We're back with Adam Hasner, who is running for Congress in Florida's US 22. Mr. Hasner, you're in a very close race with one of the most highest Jewish populated congressional districts in the nation. How do your positions differ than that of your competitor?
Well, I think we differ in a lot of ways. I think first and foremost, when you look at some of the commitments that I've made, I recognize we're facing tough times in Washington, but I also recognize that the people in Washington are part of the problem. I've committed to never voting for or accepting a pay increase. I've committed to refusing a congressional pension, and I believe in something that's very much like the real world. It says if Washington doesn't get the job done and pass a budget, then members of Congress shouldn't be paid. And I think that that's really differentiates me from my opponent, who raised her pay while she was the mayor in West Palm Beach, who tried to get around term limits. I'm a big believer in term limits and will personally, voluntarily abide by them. But also on policy too, on taxes, where she believes in raising taxes on job creators and small businesses, where I think we need to reform taxes. She supports more regulations that I think are going to stifle small businesses from being able to grow. I think we need to right-size our regulatory environment. I support an energy policy for more domestic exploration for oil and natural gas, something she opposes. So on issue after issue, healthcare as well, she supports a government-run single-payer system, which I think is taking America, or would be taking America, in the wrong direction. So on issue after issue, on the important issues about fiscal responsibility, she supports more spending and more deficits and debt. I recognize we need to get spending under control and get our budget back to balance. And I think on what we need to do to create jobs, again, I think her ideas are only going to create more trouble for small businesses.
What do we need to do to create jobs?
Well, I think we need to have certainty in the business climate. What small business owners tell me all the time is, tell me what my taxes are going to be, tell me what the regulations are going to look like, let me be able to go out and hire and invest, create jobs and build new infrastructure. And when they're uncertain because Congress or leadership in Washington is saying that they want to increase taxes, that means that they decide not to expand their operations and bring on new employees. And so I think we need to lower our tax rates. We need to eliminate loopholes and exemptions, so broaden the base and give people the certainty in the regulatory arena. So many jobs are lost because of the cost of compliance and the red tape and the bureaucracy that's out there. And then affordable energy. We're seeing nearly $4 a gallon gas prices now. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but we need affordable energy, and having more made in America energy, I think, is an important part of that solution. And so those are some of the very simple things that we can get done to get our economy moving again.
The energy aspect seems so simple. And the Keystone Pipeline seems like just a layup decision. So why do you believe that the president did not sign the authorization for the Keystone Pipeline?
Well, there's a lot of pressures on the president as well as on my opponent. Both oppose the Keystone Pipeline as well as other domestic sources of energy. And so I think, unfortunately, it's more about politics than what's right for our country and being more energy secure and energy independent. And so these are issues that I think have broad bipartisan support, but unfortunately, I think some of these folks are beholden to some of the extreme groups that don't want to see that type of progress. And I think that's another great way that I would differentiate myself from my opponent going to Washington.
As a member of the Florida delegation in government for the past 8 years or so, what are your qualities that enable you to get something done as one member of a body that's 435 individuals?
Well, I demonstrated it during my time in Tallahassee. I think what people are looking for are leaders who can work together with those on the other side of the aisle. A perfect example, I worked together with then State Senator Ted Deutsch, now a member of Congress. But 5 years ago, we worked on Florida's first in the nation Iran divestment legislation, where Florida became the first state to get rid of all of our pension funds that do in companies that do business in Iran. And that was bringing together across the aisle, and I've proven it on innovative cancer research. I was named American Cancer Society legislator 2 years in a row, doing it on issues important to our environment, like Everglades restoration, as well as stopping the pumping of wastewater into our oceans to protect our coastal waters and reefs, and then something like the Ocean Energy Center off the coast in Fort Lauderdale. So a lot of things where I'm able to bring people together. I know what I believe, but I also know that I can work well with others and have the qualities of being able to disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that's what people are looking for.
What are some of those other qualities, those characteristics that make you a special person to believe that you can get something done? Because obviously, the president came to Washington saying those kind of things, that just his persona was going to be able to get things done. And others go to Congress feeling that way as well, but yet things don't get done.
Well, I'm a listener. I think that's important. I also have a lot of support from those across the aisle. I've been very proud to have a Democrats for Adam leadership council that's led by former elected officials, former candidates who actually one who even ran against me. So I think that's really speaks a lot, that people say on the issues that matter most, Adam Hasner has the right solutions, he has the right ideas, and has the the right energy and really just attitude to go to Washington, even in these critical times that we're facing, and help to get the job done.
We're going to take a break here. We'll come back. We'll get into a little bit more of the issues and certainly discuss Israel and its prominence certainly in your district. We'll be right back. We're back with Adam Hasner. Adam, what grade would you give the president on his policy towards Israel?
Well, I can tell you it's been very disturbing to read some of the headlines more recently with not meeting with President Netanyahu. But I think rather than give him a grade, what I would say is that I think we need to recognize that it's in America's best security interest to stand with our ally, the State of Israel. It is so important for Israel to know that its greatest ally, the United States, is going to be there. And there's no greater threat that Israel faces right now than the existential threat from a potential nuclear Iran. And I don't know if this administration or a lot of those on the other side are willing to speak out about it, as I have, to call attention to this and the importance of making sure that not just Israel knows this, but I think it's that all of our allies around the world know that the United States is going to stand with them. And that would be something that I don't think this administration has lived up to.
I want to talk Iran a little bit, but I want to find out from a political dynamic standpoint, when President Obama knows how important Florida is, knows what the Jewish population is of Florida, and yet decides not to meet with Netanyahu, what goes into that decision?
Well, you'd have to ask President Obama what goes into that decision. But I think it's very disheartening because I think we recognize right now what's going on in that region. Iran isn't simply the only threat. You have a Muslim Brotherhood run Egypt. You have what's taking place in Syria. Just these past few weeks of watching the anti-American and anti-Israel protests, the murdering of our ambassador in Libya and 3 others, very reminiscent from my perspective, acts of terrorism, but very reminiscent of 1979, of watching our embassy be attacked, and in Egypt watching our flag be lowered and a Muslim Brotherhood flag or an Al-Qaeda flag be raised. These are very dangerous times, and we need American leadership. And I don't believe the president has asserted the proper leadership to let the world know that we are not going to stand for this, that there will be consequences for attacking our embassies, for killing our people. We're still contemplating sending money to these countries. I believe that's the wrong solution. I've been one of the early people to call for ending funding to Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, but also concerned about the money we're sending to Egypt and to other UN organizations that aren't in America's best security interests. And I just think we need a leader that's going to recognize America's security interests and is going to take the right steps on those issues.
So given the situation with Iran on the verge of gaining a nuclear weapon, what would you want a President Romney to do? What decisive action would you want him to take?
Well, I'd want him to speak clearly, just like I want President Obama to speak clearly. I want them to speak clearly to say that if Iran gets to a point of nuclear capability, and there's a difference between nuclear capability and a nuclear weapon, that America will support Israel if it decides that it has to act in its best national security interest. And I think that's the biggest thing, is recognizing that Israel has the sovereign right to defend itself. And it's not taking preemptive action. I think that's the biggest critical difference, is that if Israel does strike because of the threat, it's because of Iran threatening to wipe Israel off the map. It's because Iran is one turn away from being able to weaponize. And so that's really where the United States needs to step in. There needs to be clear direction. There needs to be moral clarity. There needs to be somebody out there taking the lead on this issue that says we are not going to allow Iran to have nuclear capability, and there will be consequences.
And so why do you think that President Obama hasn't drawn
sanctions haven't worked. Mm-hmm. Diplomacy has failed. I know sanctions took a couple of extra years to get passed through this administration. And then when you look at the sanctions, unfortunately, there's as many loopholes in the sanctions against Iran as there are loopholes in our American tax code. And they've exempted and provided waivers to 20 of Iran's trading partners. Of course, it's had a slight impact on Iran's economy, but it hasn't deterred Iran from moving forward. And so the only way that sanctions and diplomacy work is if there's also the threat that all actions, including military actions, will be taken. And I'm not sure there has been that level of clarity yet from this administration. And I hope that others around the world see the importance, again, not just for Israel, but understanding what a nuclear Iran would mean for the region, potential nuclear proliferation with Saudi Arabia, as well as the ability to use that with others, and then also what it means to the West and what it means to the United States if Iran does become a nuclear power.
Do you want that red line to be drawn?
I do want the red line to be drawn. I recognize that the United States' red line is different from Israel's red line simply because of proximity, simply because of its size and its arsenal. But I think what has made the United States the greatest power in the world is when we have spoken with moral clarity and with leadership. And I'm disappointed that we haven't provided that type of clear thought and clear leadership.
And does that red line say that if you don't disband your nuclear program by X date?
Well, I do think there needs to be. I do think there needs to be some timeline set, and obviously I'm not privy to intelligence and daily briefings. But again, I think it's about setting the right tone so that our allies around the rest of the world know as well. And I think Poland's another good example of where the United States hasn't sent the right messages to our allies.
We got a couple minutes left, and understanding that with our Jewish population in the district that you're running in, another great issue of discussion would be Medicare. Where do you stand on Medicare and the Affordable Health Act?
Well, first, I think we have to talk about the facts. Medicare is going insolvent within the next decade. My mom actually relies on Medicare, and so nothing that I want to do or nothing I would do would ever have an impact on my mom or the millions like her or anyone 55 and over for that matter. But we have to recognize that if we do nothing, Medicare as we know it will end. That's why this is so important to save and strengthen Medicare today. The bipartisan plan that's supported by Republicans and Democrats will ensure Medicare is there for seniors and those nearing eligibility, 55 and over, and it will strengthen the program for future generations. And I think that's the promise that we need to make sure that we can preserve, because if we don't do anything, then not only is it going to have a negative impact on current seniors, but it's going to have a devastating impact on future generations. And so that's why I think we need to support a bipartisan plan that does just that.
Very good. Is there anything that you'd like to say to your constituents as we head down the final 30 seconds of this?
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk about where we are as a country and the fact that I believe we can rise to these challenges and put America back on the right course. And I think we've done it in prior generations. We can do it. We can do it again, and that means getting our fiscal house in order, getting America's economy back on the move, and making sure that America takes a leadership role around the world.
Very good. Adam Hasner, thank you very much.
Good to be with you.
That's it for this edition. For more information on our show, please visit us on the web at tolifelachayim.com. I'm Lee Lazerson. Thank you very much for joining us. And to life, l'chaim.